Did I take what I learned and took that into private practice? I thought I did. But the pressure of finance, the pressure of having a team that was growing, all those pressures are the things that when you want to become a legendary leader, you want to get to know your team individually. You want to get to know everything about them. And you want to be the example.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Bruce B. Baird, and you're listening to the Productive Dentist Podcast. In this podcast, I will give you everything that I've learned over the last 40 years in dentistry, working with thousands of dentists. I'll tell you, it's not that my way is the only way. It's just one that has worked extremely well for me, and I'd love to share that with you so you too can enjoy the choices and lifestyle that productivity allows. More time for things you love, increased pay, better team relationships, and lowered stress. Let's get into it with this week's episode of the Productive Dentist Podcast.
Hi, this is Dr. Bruce Baird with the Productive Dentist Podcast. We're talking episode 112 today, and I wanted to share with you guys my thoughts on leadership and what it means to be what I would consider a legendary leader. I've had multiple opportunities and multiple times in my career where I've had people that I looked up to as a leader. I guess starting out with my dad, he was a phenomenal leader. He was a flight commander of a helicopter called Southern Airways, and he was one of the commanders that taught people to fly helicopters. And most of those kids were headed off to Vietnam back in the early 60s and all the way up till 1973. But my dad was a great leader. He had a lot of people that he was in charge of. He was the instructor of the year multiple times. And so, and you look up to your dad, and so I looked up to him, and he did things his way, and you guys have heard me talk about my dad. I mean, he was a great dad and coached my baseball team and was always around, for basketball and that kind of stuff. But, I began to hear things as I was growing up, and that, I don't know, that put questions in my mind. And those questions came to the forefront when I got into leadership positions. Dad and back in the day, they would all get together, have drinks, and it was almost having a group of friends around you that he surrounded himself with, or became friends with people that were around him. And that's kind of his boat on leadership. It was a very, it was very hands-on, approach. For me, growing up, he was very, very, he worked all the time and he believed in work and everything else. And I think that's kind of what started my, I'm not going to say leadership initially, but that's what started me working as a kid. I literally had jobs from the time I was, I started a newspaper in my community or around my neighborhood. More likely, I got a printing press for Christmas, and so I started putting out information about the neighborhood. What were the kids doing, and what all these different things. And then I started picking peaches when I was probably 12 years old. 13 years old. And I just always had jobs. I always liked to work. I always liked to make money. And I joke about often about my leadership skills, and I may in the past have talked about this, but I started on the sidewalks, people would put a little number there, your number of your house number. So when you're driving down the street, you would look on the sidewalk or look on the curb and see that. And so I started my own business, spray painting with stencils, the house number. And I would charge $3 for one side of the driveway. and 5, we'd do both sides of the driveway. And that was me. And I think the first day that I did this, and I went door to door, I was probably 13 years old, went door to door. And in my first day doing this, I made $90, which back in 1966, 67, 68, $90 was a whole lot of money. That was like making, making 1,000 today. And so the next day I went down a different street, and I did really well, did, $80 or $90 the next day. And I thought, wow, this is going to be, it's going to be my new job. This is what I'm going to do the rest of my life, man. I'm making great money. This is awesome. And what ended up happening was, because of my leadership skills, I thought, this would be awesome if I could hire some other people to do this for me. And so I did. I hired some fourth graders to go down the streets. I would do the sales. They would do the stencils. And then we got a complaint. Apparently, I was not as good a leader in teaching them the way I wanted it and what was allowed and what was not allowed. It just got down to the, how much money we were making. And my dad said, okay, that's it. No more of this. And I was like, oh man, but I made a bad leadership decision. I hired more people to do it, but I've been that type of person. I've always enjoyed the entrepreneurial spirit, and being a legendary leader to me was making money. But that really is not what becoming a legendary leader is. What becoming a legendary leader, and after that experience, I went on and did things, in college working. I worked at night, 11 at night to 7 in the morning. I've never been afraid of work, and I've always outworked my habits, outworked my spending, if you will. So, and those are the things that I look at, and I just go, wow, man, this is awesome. And in looking back, there were some things that I could have learned. Number one, when I was in the military, it was a kind of a nice situation. I had what I would call a legendary leader in the military. A guy named Paul Cryer. He was a full colonel, and Paul understood that getting to know people and getting to understand him, he and I became what I would call great friends. As a young captain and a senior officer, we became great friends, and we were the ones who did a lot of the productivity in the office. And so what he taught me was, you work really hard and you get to play hard. You get to be the one who does things that others don't get to do. And, most of the time you would go on temporary duty assignments. They call that TDY, to go to education. And in the military, you'd get to go once a year to Walter Reed or to the Presidio out in San Francisco and go take courses. Well, I was an extremely high producer in our practice or in our clinic, 28 chair clinic, because I was really one of the few docs that was actually doing work. The rest of them were all going to meetings and doing things that they do as officers. And I was there as kind of the guy. I'd just come back from Korea, and so I'm doing a lot of dentistry. I'm having a ball doing dentistry. I'm learning from everyone else around me. But as a legendary leader, Paul was like, or Colonel Cryer was like, Bruce, I'll beat you today on this. I'm going to see more patients in emergency patients to do than you are. And I go, no way, that ain't going to happen. And so he would motivate me with challenges. He would motivate me. And then, he would say, where do you want to go next month? I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, there's a great course out in San Fran. There's something up in DC. There's a course here in Texas that is great. So you pick it. Wherever you want to go is great with me. Why? Because I was productive. I built a great team of people around me. When we first started, he said, you've got these 8 treatment rooms here. I'm going to give you expanded duty assistance, which in the state of Texas, we have no expanded duty. But in the military, I had expanded duty. I learned all of these skills. But the most important skill I learned from Colonel Cryer was, getting to not be a personal friend, but when you see that person, that these people that are working for you, it's a smile. It's a, you're amazing. It's just doing those things that we've talked about in the past. And to me, as you go through that process, you start to get more leadership skills. Now, remember this, I was learning this stuff prior to going into private practice, where everything changed, where I was the worst boss on the planet. Did I take what I learned and took that into private practice? I thought I did. But the pressure of finance, the pressure of having a team that was growing, all those pressures are the things that when you want to become a legendary leader, you want to get to know your team individually. You want to get to know everything about them. And you want to be the example. I use that integrity talk all the time, because if you ever are out of integrity, your team it's like losing their direction, because they fully expect you to be a certain way. And I wasn't that way. I was not good. It wasn't that I did not have integrity. It's that I was so stressed out, and with debt, and with patience, and not knowing how to run a business on my own. And those are the things that we're going to be working on in the future, is helping dentists, helping young dentists learn what's it like, what are the things that I need to do in business, to button up my business. And I've said this before, when we talk about our our books and how we run our business, you have to understand it. And once you be able to understand it, you can get outside of yourself and get into others and start helping others. And as soon as I did that, I started noticing that my leadership skills, or my job satisfaction, my ability to be able to communicate with my own team got better. And it continued to get better. And then over a period of time, you start to realize that these people are your family. And in leadership, whether I'm leading a team to a certain result, maybe a basketball coach when I was coaching AAU ball, when I was teaching my team how to do things properly, the way that I wanted to do them, the way that I wanted our patients to be treated. As I trained that, then it started to become physiologic. It started to become something that became kind of standard in our business, standard in our practice. And it grew, and it got deeper and deeper and deeper. We all felt together that we're doing such a better job of taking care of patients than we did 5 years ago. And I really think that's something to look at. Every year I look back and I say, are we taking better care of our patients than we did last year? Am I personally taking better care of my employees than I did last year? And so these are the things that if you're looking at, um, you know, it's so much more fun. I love doing dentistry on my friends. Yeah, and I've told you guys that I love doing dentistry on my friends, but I also love doing dentistry with my friends, and that's my team. And when you get to that point, all of a sudden you have a team. And I've got examples of doctors that I just absolutely love, because their team is so ingrained into what they do. I go back and I I think about Pete Dawson, and Pete was pretty adamant about the way he wanted to do things. He was a my way or the highway kind of guy, kind of like my dad, kind of like me early on. But what ended up happening was, there was a place for everything, and everything in its place. If there wasn't something where it was supposed to be, then he would go back and retrain and re-talk about that. So anyway, these are things that I want you to start thinking about. We're going to be talking about this legendary leadership and mentorship a lot uh, in the next few podcasts. So, send me questions, Bruce at productivedentist.com. We actually have some openings in our workshop this year. I think we have about 15 spots left, and that is in I'm sorry, it's in February. It's the 16th through the 19th of February. And so really look forward to seeing you guys there. Give us a call. And again, send me questions to bruce@productivedentist.com. Hope you guys have a great day and tell your friends about the podcast.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Productive Dentist Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, make sure you subscribe. Pass it along to a friend. Give us a like on iTunes and Spotify, or drop me an email at podcast@productivedentist.com. Don't forget to check out other podcasts from the Productive Dentist Academy at productivedentistpodcast.com. Join me again next week for another episode of the Productive Dentist Podcast.